All right, welcome to the jungles of Lustria. So here we have a matchup between the dwarfs, led by myself, Justice playing the wood elves. In the back is an army of lizardmen, I guess protecting their jungle. And then on the far side, we have a group of dark elves who have sided with the lizardmen. Um, just very briefly, I want to talk about deployment before we begin this matchup because I play quite a bit of multiplayer and more than I do like a 1v1 on the ladder. And what I've noticed is that for the deployment you generally want to deploy like with your ally, because if you deploy like on one side of the map and then your opponent deploys on the other side of the map, what's going to happen is you're just going to eliminate the one army, and then afterwards you're going to fight the other army. So you're going to have a 2v1 against this guy, and then you're going to have a 2v1 against this guy, which is, basically going to obviously favor whoever is engaging with the 2v1. If you do want to do a split deployment, then you have to give the other team some reason why they should go after this army or after this army at the same time. Or you want to put like some sort of bait unit in the middle and then pull that bait unit back and then attack in on the flanks. In this matchup, there was no bait unit here, so there was no reason for us to go in the middle and to get attacked from the sides by these other armies. So that's just like a top level perspective. I think we can hop right into the action now and the concept behind this game. So this was not a serious game. It was a casual game, and you'll notice my army comp sort of reflects that. Just before the game, Justice said, "I don't understand why people don't just bring an entire front line of Slayers." So as a proof of concept, I went absolutely all out on a Slayers. I have nothing in my army except for Slayers and two Runesmiths, and then Thorgrim Grudgebearer. And basically the plan was to use the tree cover as much as possible. Granted that I didn't cheap out and pick a map with only tree cover. I think it's fairly balanced. There's a bit of areas where you're exposed. And use the tree cover and just get these guys into combat and see how they do. So initial barrage of arrows going off on the Skink Priest of Heavens. This is a good play by our opponents, just kind of scouting things out and seeing what was here. An early Chain Lightning goes down. I mean, it does some damage on the Glade Guard, but that's a lot of Winds of Magic used. And with these units not really engaged with anything at this point in time, they're free to just move out of the way. I'm not sure Justice noticed that it was going down because the Glade Guard did get hammered pretty hard. But I think at this point I was calling to Justice, let's move up, let's attack. We saw this Saurus Spears that was not in the trees, and we saw these dark elves on the far side that were basically indicating to us that the two allies were separated. So we pushed like full speed into the lizardmen. And what you'll notice is basically I'm going to peel around the flank here while Justice engages with the front line. And so I'm just going to fast forward here and sort of show you that coming out. So early engagements. Some Chameleon Skinks. I drop a Rune of Wrath and Ruin on them just to slow them down. Nothing too crazy here. Firebark Elders going right into the trees, and they're going to be in their element just supporting these Wildwood Rangers, who are going to cut up these sort of spears. And then basically some more Spearmen just holding against the Croc Scars and the Saurus Spears. So I'm not going to chase these Chameleon Skinks because that would be a waste for me. My opponent drops another Chain Lightning, but again, because my units aren't engaged in combat, I recognize this, so I pull away, and he gets very little value from the Chain Lightning, other than the fact that it delayed my units from advancing for a little bit. So yes, I mean, it sort of acted a bit as a net of Ammon talk in the sense that I had to retreat instead of just going straight in. The Dark Elves, they're starting to get some work in with the repeater bolt throws, but if you look, they're going straight into the trees, and they're also probably hitting some of their own allied units because it's shooting into a ball of troops here. Like, yeah, okay, you're going to hit some Wildwood Rangers, but they're also hitting Croc Cigars. So you know, maybe it would have been better to reposition the bolt throwers and shoot at these units that aren't in the trees and that aren't mixed in with their own allies. So lizardmen are taking a complete beating now. Durthu's going to work, just cutting up, you know, temple guards with his Wildwood Rangers. The Slayers are in now. And you can see the leadership of the Lizardmen is starting to drop. The Kroxigars have gotten absolutely diced up by the Slayers. The Runesmiths, Thorgrim, you know, they're taking their time. See if there's any buffs active right now. No, but I wanted to go pretty heavy on the damage resist buffs with these guys. So I have Rune of Negation, Rune of Oath and Steel, and let's see, what does Thorgrim have? Pretty hard to go on top of it, but that's Durthu. There we go. He's got a Great Book of Grudges for a melee buff and minus 27 melee defense, plus standard ground. So just a mix of buffs to kind of keep the Slayers alive and fighting. They've taken very little damage at this point, and the Lizardman army is all but destroyed. So now that Lizardmen are out, the balance bar is starting to creep a little bit up in our favor. We're able to, now we secured the woods, start pushing up and putting some pressure on the Dark Elves. So the Dark Elves, they've got some Harganeth Executioners up front, but they're exposed. They're not in the tree line, which means that these archers are going to be able to shoot in freely on them. There's some return fire from these Shades with dual weapons. Now Shades, they have armor-piercing missiles, right? So if you want to get max value out of your Shades, you want to be shooting at units with armor, right? So shooting into Glade Guard which only have 15 armor, you're not getting max return from your Shades with dual weapons, right? So they would have been better, for example, attacking a target like Durthu. If they could shoot Durthu, yes, Durthu is very tanky and has missile resistance. Let's see how much. He's got a missile resistance of 15%, so it is going to negate some of it, but it would still be a much better target for those Shades than the Glade Guard. So Slayer's creeping up around the side. The Dark Elf player intelligently notices that and sends some units to intercept, but Slayers are pretty fast. I mean, if I wanted to, I could just pull them away and kite. I'm okay with taking this engagement though. Like, normally this is not optimal, but Giant Slayers are probably still going to be able to dice up Dread Spears, and there's not much left in the Dark Elf army, so I was a little bit lazy here maybe. Plus, in tying up these two units, I freed this other unit to go in here and eliminate the bolt throwers. There's nothing really in reserve to threaten these Slayers, so that was a really good situation for me. The Bull Fiends and the other Dark Shards, now that these units have been committed to taking on the Giant Slayers, they're not protecting their Dark Shards anymore, so you've got basically a full route going on here. Dreadlord on Sword and Shield. Interestingly, on a Pegasus. That's a strange choice for a Dreadlord, because usually the Dreadlord is, you pick a Dreadlord because you want to have high melee attack. And the Pegasus, you're losing out on the armor pen if you take a Dreadlord on a Pegasus. Yes, you get mobility, but I mean, usually you're going to see spellcasters taking the Pegasus mount because of the option to kite. Alternatively, you're going to see the Dreadlord with the Repeater Crossbow taking the Pegasus mount, again, because of the ability to kite. Like, a Pegasus is usually not optimal if you want to be throwing it down in melee. So let's just focus in on these Slayers here who are having a good time, just chopping up everything, fighting to the death. The Dread Spears, they're doing their best to dish it out, but things are looking pretty good for us. And that's the end of the fight. So, proof of concept. Are Slayers viable as a frontline unit? I mean, maybe. I don't think our opponent's deployment was as good as it could have been. So, you know, I certainly wouldn't want to bring this into ladder, but, you know, these Slayers picked up 2 chevrons. These ones picked up a couple of chevrons. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 chevrons in total for my Slayers. So they got some work done. We were fortunate to get that initial fight in the forest, and if I would have conceded it to my opponent and just backed up and gone over to support the Dark Elf and protect those bolt throwers, because if maybe they could have kept those bolt throwers online, then they might have had some good options to protect the Slayers. Or to take down some of the Slayers. I do think the matchup, like just based on army composition, was something that favored us. The Dark Elves went very heavy with armor pen, right? So you got Harganeth Executioners, you got times 3, you've got 3 units of Dark Shards, and you've got 2 units of Shades, and you've got Repeater Bolt Throwers. So all of these units, except for the Spearmen, have armor pen. And I mean, I guess, in fairness, he was probably expecting a dwarf army with a lot of heavy armor, as people tend to bring, right? So against a traditional dwarf army, this would have been very effective, right? Because you got all this armor pen, you can deal with those dwarfs. But I think if you go, like, if you cheat too hard on a particular strategy, and your opponent does something unexpected, like for example in this game brings 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units of Slayers, like, I mean, who's going to do that? But it happened. Then you're kind of in a very difficult position because you can't really respond to that. And versus Wood Elves, you don't necessarily need all of that armor pen. Here, yeah, might have done some work against the Wildwood Rangers. Probably could have shot up some Treekin if needed. But mostly, I mean, if you think of a Wood Elf army, you've got Eternal Guard, who are going to be lightly armored with shields, usually. In this case, I don't think Justice brought the shields, or you're going to have Glade Guard, and again, those don't have armor. So just a little thing there. And then I think the Dark Elf player, I mean, this is sort of old hat. Everyone says this, but bring a mage. It really helps. Like, if you leave 30 wins of magic on the table, you're hurting yourself, I think, from a competitive standpoint. You can, even if you bring a mage with only 1 spell, that's only like 400 gold or 500 gold, like, I mean, depending on the army or who you're playing with. And so it's not hard to fit that into an army comp, and it can help your team enormously. Monte of Karam, you know, he did his thing. I think he was in a bit of a tough spot just off the deployment, and I think the Skink Priest of Heavens could have dropped the Chain Lightnings in situations where maybe things were a little bit more balled up. Like, it is a very effective damaging spell, but it does cost a lot of Winds of Magic, so you want to be careful about when you use it and really look for balled up units that are already in an engagement and that can't just move away very easily. So overall, fun match. Totally a gimmicky build, but you know, it was just to see whether or not you could win with a front line of Slayers. So there you have it. Thanks for watching.